Philippine history has been vivid throughout its own timeline. From colonization to wars, the struggles to gain freedom and democracy, betrayal from its own citizens, to attaining the long riddance of foreign autonomy. Countries have endured similar hindrances of fecund way of living. But as for now, let's fixate our minds in some of various Philippines' historical background that shaped its current form and became part of different categories of historical sources that are still in relevance in the modern world.
Economic history probes how economies have evolved over time, and it is inquisitive on how worlds are interconnected in trades, finance, technology, and labor that affect and develop the economy of a country. For further explanation, the barter system is one of the examples in economic history. How? During pre-colonial times, the Philippines was composed by numerous kingdoms, and numbers of merchants are coming for trade. The merchants traded goods such as pots, rice, gold, and other products from Filipino kingdoms. However, the barter system was implemented most of the time, and the pre-colonial people enjoyed a life filled with imported goods which reflected their lifestyle and passion. And for the second example, the development of the Bank of the Philippines. Back on the establishment of the Commonwealth in 1945, the country was left with a devastated city, a food crisis, and a financial crisis. In an effort to solve these massive socio-economic problems of the period, the newly elected President Manuel Rojas reorganized the government and proposed a wide-sweeping legislative program. The establishment of the Rehabilitation Finance Corporation, which would be reorganized in 1958 as the Development Bank of the Philippines. President Manuel Rojas submitted to Congress a bill establishing the Central Bank of the Philippines, defining its power in the administration of the monetary and banking system. Those are examples of economic history that provide valuable insights into the forces that have shaped globalization and how global economic interaction have influenced societal and economic changes across time.
So now, let's proceed to diplomatic history. Diplomatic history is the study of interactions and relationships between states, focusing on how diplomacy shapes international relations. It examines the treaties, negotiations, alliances, and conflicts, as well as the roles and the strategies of diplomats and statesmen. Here are the two examples of diplomatic history in the Philippines. First is the Treaty of Manila. The Treaty of Manila is the agreement between United States and the Philippines. In this treaty, the United States recognized the sovereignty of the Philippines and formalized the independence of the Philippines from the World War II of America to have peace and reconciliations. Second is the Mutual Defense Treaty. In this treaty, the United States and the Philippines commit an agreement to have a mutual support and collaborations on defense strategies. Like if one country is attacked, the other will assist in its defense. These two treaties are significantly influence our diplomatic history and the current state of the Philippines, reflecting a strong diplomatic relationships the two nations have. This is especially important now as the Philippines faces a threat from China because of the Philippine Sea.
Intellectual history. It examines the roots and development of ideology, philosophy, and knowledge systems that shaped a certain economy or society from minimum and maximum extent. A good example is from an article of Nicole Kuminjing Aboitiz, published on June 12, 2020. The paper states that Filipinos, on the whole, are famously pro-American. In 2014, Philippines topped the Global Attitude Survey with regard to global public approval of the United States, coming in with a 92% favorability rating. Specifically, the writings propose that imperial ideologies have a significant influence in Filipinos' prospective view in different disciplines, especially the ilustrados, or the elite people of Philippines, because they've been concerned with grappling the politics and geopolitical standpoints of the then current social Darwinism. A matter of fact, this relates to our modern West centric influences and lifestyles. The good old survival of the fittest, endless hierarchy, separation and categories of low class to the widespread word bourgeoisie or the upper class. Ideological embracement from foreign countries formed the capitalistic and industrial society that resembles today's Philippine geopolitical stances and stereotypes. Another example of intellectual history that resides within the Philippine background is from Neoliberalism as Hegemonic Ideology in the Philippines by Walden Bello, which I will support with the article from Roberto Andres, who wrote Neoliberalismo sa Pilipinas. Neoliberalism became an alternative policy model, introduced by monopoly capitalists and also the Estados Unidos, or US, being the lead of the model in the early 1970s. The idea sets foot for the market to be free, other concepts such as deregulation, minimal government spending, and globalization. In the Philippines, neoliberal policies have been implemented through successive regimes that are all puppets of US imperialism. All of them benefit from freeing the capitalists and corporations using the government for this purpose, says Roberto Andres. For other countries like Chile, the policy model became their economic demise pit. Compared to the Philippine market status, our country is still a free trading grounds for large institutions, banks, and foreign investors. However, two of relevant pointers were Ferdinand Marcos and Cory Aquino's constituents with principles of neoliberalism that paved the way to economic failures, and also destabilized neoliberalistic systems, monetary burden transposition to government. In the intellectual history context, all of the examples played a role on how Filipinos traditionally and diversely bring up their ideas, philosophies, and beliefs that influence the country itself and other history, such as what brings us to our next topic.
My name is Rose B. Vega, and today I'm going to discuss to you the cultural source of Philippines. So, what is cultural source? Cultural source is a historic or indicators of past human activities, including artifacts, sites, structures, landscape, and objects of importance to a culture or community. Here's the two examples of cultural source of Philippines. The first one is baybayin. One of the Asian pre-colonial writing system used by early Filipinos comes from Tagalog root word baybay, which means to spell. It dates back way before the Spaniards reached our shores through the 18th century. Baybayin is an abugida belonging to the family of the Brahmic scripts. Its use was gradually replaced by the Latin alphabet during Spanish rule, though it has seen limited modern usage in the Philippines. It was used to write other language during those times, namely Ilocano, Bisaya, and Pangasinan. Baybayin was primarily used for personal correspondence and government recording keeping purposes. It also used as a sign manual in trade and for temple rituals and ceremonies. But today, baybayin is often used for cultural and aesthetic purposes, such as in art, graduation regalia, tattoos, and logos. Today, we're going to talk about the second one. The second is Biyag ni Lamang, the life of Lamang. It's an epic story of the Ilocano people from the Ilocos region of the Philippines. It is notable for being the first Philippine folk epic to be recorded in written form and was one of only two folk epics documented during Philippine Spanish colonial period. It also noted for being a folk epic from Christianized kids, lowland people group, or the Ilocano people, with elements incorporated into the storytelling. Biyag ni Lamang or Life of Lamang, it depicts bravery, sacrifice, justice, love, romance, relationship, journey, and friendship, which is reflected to our traits, attitudes, and values. These two examples of cultural sources being part of our county. I hope you learned a lot.
Primary and secondary sources. In research study, primary sources serves as the primary focus analysis or a secondary sources serves to synthesize, describe, interpret, and make generalization about primary sources. Secondary sources can explain the how and why of historical events and aid readers in understanding commentary and information for the second-hand sources. Introduction. Social history. Social history is the term used to describe the study of common people, their daily routines, and their custom and ritual which make them up. One of the examples of social history is the gender of how masculinity, femininity, other gender identities were expressed, constructed, and enforced. Following Spanish colonization, Filipinos are born into predefined roles. Filipino men are encouraged to emulate their fathers and male other figures, while women are groomed for less dominant roles, often following the example of their mothers and older female relatives. However, contemporary Philippine society has seen changes aiming at improving women's roles, such as granting their rights to participate in nation building and ensuring safe working conditions that consider their maternal responsibilities. The second example of, or the other example of social history is the history of slavery. From 1942 to 1945, during the Japanese of the Philippines and other parts of Asia, the Imperial Japanese Army established a system of sexual slavery. In the Philippines alone, more than 1,000 women, including some minors, were taken as sexual slaves. The organized system of warping slavery violated international laws in effect at the time, particularly in 1926 Slavery Convention and the 1933 Convention of the Suspension of the Traffic of Women of Full Age. Just like in today's world, gender and slavery have become shaped societies throughout history by addressing injustice, advocating of reforms, and inspiring collective action. Likewise, the women's rights movement fought a gender equality, achieving significant progress in areas like voting and education. This too reflects in the modern world to have equality of having the freedom to choose, especially that up until now, people face inequality between genders and women.
Now that we tackled the five different historical sources, let's differentiate the two types of source. First, the primary source, which provide a first-hand written article or unfiltered evidence, while the secondary source is a broader interpretation or analysis from a primary sources.
Still, there are five different types of sources that provide informations and help us to have a better understanding of social changes and learn about the past that affects our modern era. And those five different types of historical sources are diplomatic sources, intellectual sources, economic sources, cultural sources, and social sources.
Those sources play crucial roles in helping us or everybody to construct or study the past events that allows us to learn about globalization and changes over time. Teach us the historical background that shaped its current form and explain how the historical sources are relevant in the modern world.
In pursuing truth, we were not only uncovering the facts but also building a deep understanding and picturing the past and opening our eyes on how we view the future and the present or the current world. We hope you learned a lot. Thank you.